Lila Bennett sold flowers outside the LaRue Grand Hotel every day after school. 9 years old, swallowed by the curb lane and the glass doors, and the kind of money that never learned how to look down. To the guests drifting in and out, perfume, luggage, laughter, she was just another kid on the sidewalk trying to turn a handful of roses into dinner. Nobody knew she spoke Russian. Her mom had been from Moscow. Not the postcard Moscow, her mom said. Winters could chew through bone, but a real one with cramped kitchens and loud neighbors and the kind of love that survives hard places. Before the crash took both of Lila's parents, her mother taught her the language like it was a secret superpower. Now it was just Lila and Grandma Ruth, one overdue bill away from losing the shotgun house in Tremay. So Lila sold flowers, and she watched, and she listened. She'd seen the hotel's owner exactly twice. Roman Vale, young, clean-cut, icy. The kind of man who moved like the sidewalk belonged to him, like he didn't notice the people who kept the city running beneath his shoes. One of his guards spoke Russian sometimes, just little phrases, like jokes tossed between drags of a cigarette. They thought nobody understood, but Lila understood. And at 5:49 p.m., on a Tuesday, she heard 3 words that turned her hands to ice when he opens the door. She looked at the black SUV idling at the curb, looked at the guard's smirks, looked at the way one of them tapped his pocket like he was checking for something. And Lila knew somebody was about to die. 5:32 p.m. 17 minutes earlier, Roman Vale stood in his corner office above the river, staring down at a city he believed he'd conquered. 34 years old, self-made, ruthless in the quiet way that scared people more than shouting ever could. Roman didn't do chaos. He did schedules. He did control. He did the kind of planning that made other men feel like amateurs. His phone buzzed. Eli, his driver SUVs. "Ready, sir." Roman checked his watch. 5:32 on the dot. He liked that. Precision meant power. Predictability meant no surprises. And Roman Vale didn't allow surprises. Every day, the same routine. Leave the office at 5:52, hit the curb at 6:02, home by 6:18. No detours, no deviations. No room for someone else's decisions. A knock at the open door. Gideon Markoff, Roman's security chief, stepped in like he owned the air. Tall, polished, a smile that never quite made it to his eyes. "Tomorrow's investor dinner is locked," Gideon said. Roman didn't look away from the window. "Anything else?" Gideon hesitated just long enough to be noticed. "No, sir." "Then stop hovering." Gideon's jaw tightened. The smile flickered. Then he turned and left. Roman watched the reflection of him disappear from the glass. Good. Roman didn't pay people for feelings. He paid them for results. He grabbed his briefcase. 17 minutes until departure. Outside, the world ran on different rules. Lila held up a rose toward a man in a blue suit who didn't break stride. "Fresh roses, sir." $4. The man's phone was pressed to his ear like it mattered more than her face. He walked right through her voice. She'd been there since 3:30. "Sold 5 roses. $20. Enough for a cheap dinner. Not enough for the electric bill." Grandma Ruth kept pretending wasn't a problem. Her feet hurt. Her stomach made small, angry noises. She still smiled at the next person, because if you looked desperate in a city like this, people acted like you were contagious. "Beautiful roses, ma'am." Nothing. She was used to it. 9 years old. Too small, too poor, too easy to ignore. But being invisible had one advantage. People didn't filter their words around you. They didn't watch what they said when they thought you didn't matter. Gideon Markoff and 2 guards stood near the hotel doors, smoking like the sidewalk was their private break room. They were speaking Russian. Most folks would hear foreign words and tune it out like background music. Lila heard her mother's voice in every syllable. "Ready at 6:02, Gideon said low and confident. One of the guards laughed. Gideon's Russian was smooth, educated. Not something you picked up watching movies. "Когда он откроет дверь." When he opens the door, Gideon made a quick little exploding motion with both hands. The guards chuckled like it was a punchline. Lila's blood went cold. She stared at the black SUV parked at the curb, Roman Vale's SUV. The one he climbed into every single day like it was part of the same machine that made him rich. Her fingers tightened around the basket handle until it bit into her skin. They were going to hurt someone, end someone. And she was the only person on this sidewalk who understood what they just said. A 9-year-old with a basket of flowers was the only one who knew there was a murder plan unfolding right in front of the fanciest doors on Canal Street. Drop a heart if you're already stressed. Lila speaks Russian because of her late mother, and she just overheard guards planning to kill their boss when he opens the door. She's a child selling flowers to survive, and now she's got minutes to warn a man who doesn't even see her. Hit that like button and subscribe for more underworld stories because Roman Vale has no idea his own security team is plotting against him, and this invisible little girl is his only chance. Time is running out. 5:53 p.m. Lila's mind raced so fast it felt like her thoughts were tripping over each other. Warn someone who? The guards were the threat. Hotel staff would laugh her out of the lobby. Police wouldn't sprint to a luxury curb because a kid with roses heard something. And Roman Vale himself. She'd seen him twice. Both times he walked past her like she was part of the pavement. Grandma Ruth's voice echoed in Lila's head the way it did when rent was due and the fridge was empty. If you see wrong and stay quiet, you're helping it. Lila looked at her remaining roses, looked at the revolving doors, looked at the black SUV. She had maybe 9 minutes before Roman came down. The conspirators drifted inside, still talking. Lila edged closer to the entrance like she was just rearranging stems, just a kid killing time. She caught more pieces in Russian sharp, practical words that didn't belong to jokes. Timed right, one guard said. Under the driver's seat, remote another added. From across the street. Lila swallowed hard. And if he lives, a voice asked, almost bored. Gideon answered with a calm that made Lila's stomach flip. Then we use the backup. His hand patted his jacket like there was weight there that wasn't fabric. These weren't bullies. They were organized, trained, ready, and Lila was 9. She needed someone who didn't wear the same earpiece. Eli Park, the driver, stood by the SUV with that stiff posture adults had when they were guarding something expensive. He looked normal. Not friendly exactly, but not smug like Gideon. Lila approached carefully, roses held like a peace offering. "Excuse me, sir." Eli glanced down, surprised a sidewalk kid had addressed him. "Yeah, do you speak Russian?" Eli blinked. "No." "Why?" The words jammed in Lila's throat. "How did you tell a grown man there was a bomb without sounding like you'd swallowed a movie?" "The guards," she said quieter. "They were saying Kid Eli interrupted, not mean but busy." "I'm working." "It's about the SUV," Lila insisted. "They said when he opens the door, Eli's patience thinned." "I don't have time for games. If you're selling flowers, try the tourists." He turned back to his phone. Lila stepped away, heart sinking like a rock. Nobody was listening. She looked up at the hotel clock through the glass. 7 p.m. 5 minutes. Her hands shook so hard the roses trembled. What could one invisible little girl do against men with radios and weapons and a plan? Then she remembered her mother's brass compass. Not the fancy kind, not the adventure kind, just a small, worn thing her mom kept in her pocket like a promise. The lid had tiny Cyrillic letters inside it, pressed into the metal. Her mother used to flip it open and whisper, half teasing, half deadly serious. "You ray small moy zaychik, but you ray not weak." Lila touched the compass through her shirt pocket now like it could steady her pulse. Okay. If adults wouldn't listen, she'd have to force them to. 6:00 p.m. Lila pushed through the revolving door like she belonged there. Cool air hit her face. Everything smelled like money polish lilies, expensive coffee. A security guard stepped in front of her immediately. Not Gideon's crew. Just standard hotel security with a bored face. "No soliciting. I need to talk to Mr. Vale," Lila said. "It's important." The guard's eyes flicked over her basket, her scuffed shoes. His mouth curled like he'd tasted something sour. "Mr. Vale doesn't take meetings with," he gestured, "lazy kids off the street. It's about his safety." That got a laugh. Not cruel exactly. Worse, dismissive. "Out. Now." Lila's eyes burned. She refused to cry. Crying made adults feel right. "Please." "Someone's going to hurt him," I said out. A hand clamped on her shoulder and guided her back toward the doors with fake patience. Lila twisted, trying to look past him. The guard's Gideon he's. The revolving door swallowed her again. She stumbled onto the sidewalk. 6:01 p.m. 1 minute. The hotel rose above her, all glass and stone and confidence. Roman Vale was up there somewhere, completely unaware that in 60 seconds he'd stepped toward a vehicle that could erase him. Lila's lungs felt too tight. Think. She couldn't get inside. She couldn't convince staff. Eli wouldn't listen. So she had one option left. She had to stop Roman at the curb loud enough that ignoring her would be impossible, even if she looked crazy, even if Gideon realized she understood him. Lila shoved that thought into a dark corner and stepped right up to the path Roman always took. She planted herself near the doors, roses clutched to her chest like armor. Her whole body shook, but she was her mother's daughter, and she would not watch someone die just because she was afraid of being embarrassed. 6:02 p.m. The doors opened. Roman Vale stepped out like he was late to something important even when he wasn't. Tall, tailored suit phone at his ear eyes, already somewhere else. He was talking about numbers, deals, terms Lila didn't know. Eli straightened and moved to open the SUV's back door. The black SUV, the seat, the plan. Lila's throat went dry. Mr. Vale, her voice cracked too high, too desperate. Roman didn't look at her. He kept walking, like her sound was wind. Mr. Vale, please don't get in that SUV. He brushed past her like she was furniture. 3 steps from the door handle. They're going to hurt you. Lila grabbed his sleeve. Roman stopped. Slowly, he looked down at her hand on his expensive jacket like it was something dirty. His eyes were ice. Let go. Please, you have to listen. Roman's head tilted slightly and a guard started toward them. Lila saw movement across the street, Gideon's posture changing attention, snapping into place. Roman didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Eli, handle this. Lila's words spilled out in a rush. They said when you opened the door, they made an explosion sound, and there's something under the seat. Remote Roman's arm jerked free. He took 2 steps toward the SUV. 2 steps. Lila did the only thing left. She spoke Russian, clear as a bell, her mother's language slicing through the air. Когда он откроет дверь бах. When he opens the door, boom. Roman froze. He turned slowly, like someone had finally spoken a code word he recognized. What did you just say? Roman asked, voice suddenly low. Lila swallowed. She forced herself to keep going. Under the driver's seat, she said in Russian again, then switched back to English. Remote detonation. From across the street, Roman's face went perfectly still. He looked at her, not through her. At her. Where did you hear that? Your guards, Lila said, breath trembling. Gideon and the 2 with him. They were by the entrance. They think nobody understands, but my mom was Russian and she taught me, and I heard them, and they're planning to. Roman lifted a hand, stopping her. His gaze slid to the SUV, then to Gideon across the street. Gideon was walking toward them now, casual, controlled, except his hand was drifting toward his jacket. Eli's face had gone pale. Sir Eli whispered, barely moving his lips. Don't touch the SUV. Roman's voice turned razor flat. Step away from it. Now. Eli backed off immediately. Roman reached behind him without looking and pulled Lila close, putting her behind his body like a shield he hadn't meant to become. Lock the doors, Roman said into his phone fast. Full lockdown. Nobody moves. Then quieter to Lila. How much time? Lila's eyes flicked to the clock. You always get in at 6:02. Roman checked his watch. 6:02. Right now. Everything snapped into motion. Roman raised his voice just enough for Gideon to hear. Gideon Roman called calm as winter. Stop where you are. Gideon stopped, smiled faintly. Sir Roman stared at him. If you move, I assume she's right. Gideon's smile didn't break, but something in his eyes tightened. Across the street, another guard shifted like he was calculating an exit. Roman didn't blink. Your only move is to stand still and let me prove this child wrong. For a heartbeat, the sidewalk held its breath. Then sirens distant but coming fast. Within seconds, security poured from the hotel doors, people Roman actually trusted, faces Lila had never seen before. They fanned out, silent, efficient. Gideon's gaze darted. He made his choice. He turned and ran. He got maybe 8 steps before 2 men slammed him to the pavement. The other conspirators tried to scatter. They didn't make it far. Minutes later, the street emptied. Police blocked off lanes. People with bomb gear moved like they were walking on glass. Lila found herself sitting on the curb with a blanket around her shoulders, roses still clutched in her lap like she couldn't let go of proof that she'd been here. Roman Vale sat down beside her. It was the first time he'd ever been at eye level with someone like her. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lila," she said softly. "Lila Bennett." "How old are you, Lila 9? Roman nodded once like he was filing it away in the part of him that stored facts. "You speak Russian?" "My mom did," Lila said. "She taught me before the crash." Roman's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry." He sounded like he meant it, and that was almost more shocking than the sirens. A bomb tech approached, face serious. "Mr. Vale," he said. "We found it. Under the driver's seat. Remote trigger." He glanced at Lila, then back to Roman. "If you'd gotten in..." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Roman looked at Lila like she'd knocked a hole in something solid inside him. "Thank you," he said, voice rougher. "You saved my life." Lila's eyes filled. Not fear, relief. Because he listened. Finally. Because someone was safe. Because her voice mattered. 2 hours later, Lila sat in the nicest room she'd ever seen that wasn't on TV. Roman's office in Vale Tower was all glass and clean lines and quiet power. The city looked small from here, like a toy set. Grandma Ruth sat beside Lila, hands folded tight in her lap like she was holding herself together with sheer will. "You should have come home," Ruth said for the third time, voice shaking between anger and pride. "You should have stayed safe." "I couldn't," Lila whispered. "Someone would have gotten hurt." Roman walked in with Eli. Both men looked exhausted in a way money couldn't fix. Roman sat across from them and didn't waste time. "Gideon confessed enough to bury himself," Roman said. "He was paid." Ruth's eyes narrowed. "By who?" Roman's mouth tightened. "People who want what I own." And how much, Ruth asked like the number mattered because it proved how cheap a life could be. Roman exhaled. 760,000. Lila flinched. That number didn't feel real. It felt like a monster. "He recruited 3 others," Roman continued. "The plan was simple. It would have worked." His gaze shifted to Lila. "If not for you." Ruth squeezed Lila's hand. Roman leaned back, eyes distant. "I've spent a decade building an empire. I've paid for security, for loyalty, for silence." He paused, and the pause felt heavy. "And a 9-year-old selling roses was the only person who tried to save me." Ruth's voice came sharp. "We didn't come here for you to be poetic." Roman's eyes met hers. "No, you came here because my world is now spilling into yours." That landed like a warning. Roman slid a folder across the desk. Ruth didn't touch it. "It's an apartment," Roman said. 3 bedrooms, paid in full, near a good school, safer than where you are. Ruth stared at the folder like it might bite. "We're not charity cases." "I'm not offering charity," Roman said. "I'm paying a debt." "You can't buy what she did," Ruth snapped. Roman's gaze flickered, not anger, something closer to shame. "I know," he said quietly. "That's why it's not just housing." He slid another page forward. "A scholarship, private school, tutors, whatever she needs." Ruth's chin lifted. "And what do you want in return?" Lila held her breath. Roman didn't pretend. "I want you off the street," he said, "and I want you quiet." Ruth went still. Roman continued, voice controlled. "My name is in the papers by morning. Gideon's people will look for loose ends. Your granddaughter is a loose end." Lila's stomach dropped. "I can keep you safe," Roman said. "But safety has rules." Ruth's eyes hardened. Rules like silence. Roman's mouth tightened. Rules like survival. Lila looked down at her rose's petals, starting to bruise at the edges. Ruth spoke slowly, each word careful. "My granddaughter did the right thing because it was right. Not because she wanted your money. Not because she wanted protection." Roman nodded once. "I know." "Then don't turn her into a bargain," Ruth said. The room felt like it had less air. Roman tapped the desk, lightly thinking. "The federal agent is downstairs. She wants a statement." Ruth's jaw flexed. "We'll talk to her." Roman's eyes sharpened. "Not without my attorney." Ruth laughed once, dry, joyless. "There it is." Roman held her gaze. "I'm not trying to hide a bomb. I'm trying to control the fallout." Ruth leaned forward, voice low. "And I'm trying to keep you from controlling my granddaughter." Lila's heart pounded. This was the trap moment, and Lila could feel it. Not cartoon evil. Not a villain twirling a mustache. Just a powerful man trying to solve everything the way he always had by owning it. Lila swallowed, then spoke. "I'll talk to the agent," she said, voice small but steady. "But only the truth. No pretending. No making it prettier. Roman's gaze snapped to her. Lila kept going, hands trembling under the desk. And we won't lie for you. We won't say what you want. We'll say what happened. Ruth's grip on her hand tightened, proud and terrified all at once. Roman stared at Lila like she'd slapped him without touching him. Then slowly he nodded. Fine, he said. Truth only. And my attorney can sit there and stay quiet. Ruth's eyebrows lifted. You'll allow that? Roman's mouth twisted. I don't like losing. Lila met his eyes. Then don't lose yourself. For a second, Roman looked like he didn't know what to do with that sentence. Then he exhaled, like something old and hard in him had shifted a millimeter. One more thing, Roman said softer. I want to set up a trust for her. For college. For anything. Ruth didn't answer immediately. Instead, she asked the question that mattered. Why? Roman's eyes drifted to the window again, to the city that had always felt like his. Because she reminded me people aren't just obstacles, he said. And I've been wrong about that for a long time. A week later, Lila stood in a bedroom that didn't smell like mold. There was a window, a real one. Not painted shut, not cracked. She could see trees from it. Grandma Ruth moved through the apartment like she was waiting for someone to jump out and say it was a joke. This is too much, Ruth murmured, running her fingers along the countertop like she was checking if it was real. Lila wanted to agree, but she also remembered the cold in her blood when she heard Russian at the curb. And she remembered Roman's eyes when he realized a child had saved him. Safety wasn't free. Nothing in Roman Vale's world was. At the new school, Lila felt like she was wearing the wrong skin. Kids stared at her thrift store uniform like it was a costume. Teachers smiled like they were practicing. Lila kept her head down, did her work, let her grades talk for her. Then on the fourth day, someone tried to take her. It happened fast, too fast for a playground story. A man waiting near the pickup lane, a hand reaching, a voice that sounded friendly until it didn't. Your grandma sent me. Lila froze, not because she believed him, because she recognized the accent, Russian tucked under English like a blade hidden under a sleeve. Her mother's compass was warm in her pocket. Lila stepped back. She didn't scream. She didn't freeze into silence. She said the first thing that came into her head, the one sentence she knew would make a predator hesitate. In Russian, clear and sharp, you're not supposed to be here. The man's eyes widened just a flicker, and that flicker bought her time. A woman moved fast across the lane, badge flashing. Federal agent, she snapped. Hands where I can see them? The man bolted. School security chased. Parents shouted. Chaos exploded in a place that was supposed to be safe. Agent Tessa Monroe crouched in front of Lila, voice steady. Lila Bennett, she asked. Lila nodded, throat tight. Tessa's gaze softened just enough to be human. You did the right thing. Again. Lila's voice shook. They found me. Tessa's eyes flicked toward the street. Yeah, which means we're on the clock. That night, Roman Vale stood in Lila's living room like he didn't belong there. He looked out of place without the glass office and the security wall. Grandma Ruth didn't offer him a seat. I told you, Ruth said, arms crossed. Safety isn't rules, it's a cage. Roman's jaw flexed. I doubled coverage. And they still came, Ruth shot back. Roman's eyes slid to Lila, who sat on the couch, clutching her compass so hard her knuckles hurt. Something in Roman's face changed anger, yes, but not at Lila. At himself. They're not just after me anymore, Roman said quietly. They're trying to erase the witness. Ruth's voice went cold. My granddaughter isn't evidence. She's a child. Roman nodded once. I know. And I hate that this is true, he stopped, like he was forcing himself to say it the right way, but her testimony matters. Lila swallowed. What happens if I don't talk? Agent Tessa Monroe stepped in from the hallway, having arrived with Roman. Tessa didn't sugarcoat it. Then Gideon's defense will say we have no credible link. They'll spin it. They'll buy time. And time is what violent people use. Ruth's face tightened. So the plan is to put a 9-year-old on a stand. Tessa's eyes held Ruth's. The plan is to stop them from doing this again. Roman's voice was low. I can move them. Out of state. Ruth snapped. You think running fixes it? Roman didn't answer because he didn't have one. Lila looked down at her compass. Inside the lid, the tiny engraving glinted. Ni boisa. Don't be afraid. Her mother's last lesson. Lila lifted her head. I'll testify, she said. Ruth whipped toward her. Baby Lila's voice shook, but she didn't back away. If I don't, they'll hurt someone else. And then I'll be the one who stayed quiet. Roman looked at her like he wanted to say something big. Instead, he said the honest thing. You shouldn't have to be this brave. Lila shrugged, small and exhausted. I didn't pick it. Tessa nodded once. Okay, then we do it right. We do it clean. We do it safe. Roman's hand flexed at his side. And if they come again, Ruth's eyes cut into him. Then you don't become them! That sentence hit Roman like a shove, because Roman Vale's whole life had been built on one belief. If someone threatens you, you crush them first. But now there was a child sitting on his couch holding a compass like it was a lifeline, and Roman realized something terrifying. Crushing people had never made him safe. It had just made him alone. 2 days before the hearing, the compass changed everything. Lila was getting ready for bed when she heard Grandma Ruth rummaging in a drawer like she was looking for a memory. I haven't seen this in years, Ruth murmured. Lila turned. In Ruth's hand was a small envelope, yellowed soft at the edges. Lila's heart stuttered. Where'd you get that? Ruth's voice went quiet. Your mama left it with me. Said it was for you when you got older. Lila's throat tightened. Why didn't you give it to me? Ruth's eyes were wet. Because every time I looked at it, I heard her voice. And I couldn't. Lila reached for it like it might disappear. Inside was a thin key and a strip of paper with Russian words written in careful handwriting. Lila's breath caught. It was her mother's handwriting. The compass in Lila's pocket suddenly felt heavier, like it was pulling the past into the present. She flipped it open. The lid wasn't just engraved. A tiny seam ran along the inside, something Lila had never noticed. With careful fingers, she pried it. A thin roll of paper slid out, tucked into the metal like a secret. Grandma Ruth gasped softly. Lila unrolled it. A safety deposit box number and a warning in Russian. Not dramatic, not poetic, just practical. If anything happens to me, don't trust the men in suits who speak my language like a joke. Lila's hands shook. Ruth covered her mouth. Roman, when he heard, went completely still. Tessa Monroe didn't look surprised. Your mother knew Tessa, said softly. Or suspected. Lila's voice was small. Knew what Tessa's gaze held Roman's for a beat before she answered, that the kind of people who hire bombs don't stop at one. The next morning, they went to the bank with federal agents and a lawyer and 2 black SUVs that looked like Roman's but weren't. The safety deposit box opened with a soft click that sounded too ordinary for what it contained. Inside, a notebook, an old prepaid phone, and photos grainy printed, annotated in Russian. Names, faces, meetings. Gideon Markov younger, Roman's hotel in the background, and a man standing beside Gideon that Roman recognized immediately. A business partner, a handshake, a smile, proof. Roman's stomach dropped in a way no bomb ever could. Because this wasn't just an assassination attempt, it was a network, and part of it had been sitting at Roman's table drinking his whiskey, calling him brother. Roman's voice went hoarse. She was investigating. Ruth's voice broke. My daughter was trying to protect us. Lila stared at the notebook like it could answer the question she'd never dared to ask out loud. Did her mother die by accident? Or did someone decide she knew too much? Tessa shut the box gently. This changes the case, she said, and it changes what they'll do next. Roman's eyes were hard now, but not in his usual way. This wasn't arrogance. This was fear. Real fear. They'll come again, Roman said. Tessa nodded. Yes. Ruth's voice turned like steel. Then we stop them. The right way. Roman's jaw flexed. The right way gets people killed. Ruth stepped closer, not intimidated. And the wrong way gets your soul killed. Silence. Then Roman did something Lila didn't expect. He nodded. Okay, he said. Tell me what you need. Tessa didn't smile. I need you to cooperate. Fully. That means names, money trails, deals you don't want public. Roman's eyes flickered. You're asking me to cut out pieces of my own empire. Tessa's gaze didn't move. I'm asking you to stop pretending your empire is worth more than a child's life. Roman swallowed hard. This was his real trap. Not the bomb, not the betrayal. The moment where he had to decide if he was going to keep being the kind of man who bought solutions, or become the kind of man who accepted consequences. Roman exhaled. I'll do it. Ruth watched him like she didn't trust the words yet. Lila watched him like she was trying to figure out what a man looked like when he chose to change. The hearing came fast. A plain room, wood benches, no glamour, just truth under oath. Lila's feet didn't touch the floor in the witness chair. Her hands shook around her compass hidden in her lap like a prayer. Gideon Markov sat at the defense table in a clean suit like he hadn't been tackled on Canal Street. He looked at Lila and smiled. A small smile. Like he wanted her to know he wasn't afraid of her. Lila's throat tightened. Tessa Monroe's voice guided her through it, slow, steady questions. "Where were you? What did you hear? How do you know it was Russian?" Lila answered clearly. And then the defense attorney tried to cut her down. "Isn't it true you were offered gifts? An apartment?" School Lila's cheeks burned. Ruth sat in the front row, face like stone. Roman sat behind, silent. Lila swallowed. "Yes. So you had a reason to lie." Lila's voice shook, but she didn't break. "I had a reason to tell the truth," the attorney scoffed. "A 9-year-old understands truth better than trained professionals." Lila looked straight at Gideon. Then she spoke Russian just one sentence the way her mother taught her, like a knife wrapped in velvet. "You thought nobody would understand you." The room went still. Gideon's smile flickered just for a second. That second was enough. Tessa Monroe stood. No further questions. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Roman's team tried to block them. Ruth pushed past. Roman started to stop her, then didn't. Ruth faced the microphones with her hands steady. "My granddaughter did what every adult should have done," Ruth said. She spoke up. Reporters shouted questions about Roman, about money, about danger. Ruth's eyes didn't leave the lens. Polity. "And if any of you want to make this about a rich man's gratitude," she added, voice sharp, "you've missed the point. My granddaughter didn't save him because he's powerful." Ruth's voice softened just a crack. She saved him because she saw a human being about to be hurt. That clip went everywhere. It made Roman Vale look good, and that scared Roman more than anything, because looking good could make people stop digging. And Roman didn't want to stop digging anymore. The second wave came 3 nights later. A maintenance issue at the gala venue, an old streetcar barn Roman had renovated for a public announcement. A shiny new foundation, a speech, cameras, a chance to signal he was untouchable. Tessa told him not to do it. Roman insisted anyway because old habits die loud. Ruth told him flat. "You're not untouchable. You're just loud." Roman stared at the streetcar barn from the sidewalk lights, strung like someone was trying to make history feel pretty. Lila stood beside Ruth in a simple dress that still felt like she was borrowing someone else's life. Roman leaned down slightly. "If you're scared, you can stay in the car." Lila shook her head. "If I don't go, I'll think about it forever." Roman's throat bobbed. Inside, people smiled. Donors shook hands. Cameras flashed. And in the back hallway near the utility room, Lila heard it. 2 men speaking Russian fast, clipped. Not Gideon. Different voices, but the same casual cruelty. "After he thanks the city," one said, "when he opens the side door." Lila's stomach dropped so hard it felt like falling. Her compass felt hot in her palm. She didn't freeze. She didn't second guess. She grabbed Ruth's sleeve. "Grandma," she whispered. Russian. "Side door." Same words. Ruth's face went pale, then hard. She turned, scanning the room. Roman was on stage, smiling for cameras like nothing could touch him. Ruth moved fast, pulling Lila with her, not toward safety, but toward Roman. People tried to block them. Ushers reached out. Ruth didn't stop. She pushed to the edge of the stage and called out loud enough to crack the room open. "Roman." Every head turned. Roman's smile faltered. Ruth's voice didn't shake. "Step off the stage." Now. A murmur ran through the crowd. Roman's security bristled, embarrassed, angry. Roman stared at Ruth like he couldn't believe she'd do this in front of donors and cameras. Then Lila spoke soft, but clear. "I heard them," she said. Again, Roman's face changed. No pride, no irritation, just cold, clean understanding. He stepped back from the microphone. Security moved. People protested. The music cut. Tessa Monroe appeared out of nowhere, like she'd been waiting for the world to finally admit it was dangerous. "Evacuate," she ordered. "Now." The room turned into motion, confused, angry motion. Roman leaned down to Lila, voice tight, where Lila's eyes flicked toward the hallway. Side door. Utility room area. Roman's jaw clenched. "Stay with Ruth." Ruth grabbed Roman's sleeve, mirroring what Lila had done weeks ago. Ruth's voice went low. "Don't you go hunting like a monster. Not in front of her." Roman's eyes held Ruth's. Then, for the first time, Roman Vale listened to someone telling him no. He nodded once. "You're right." He turned to Tessa. "You take point." Tessa's eyebrows lifted, surprised. "Excuse me," Roman's voice was steady. "This is your operation. I'm done playing hero." That choice, small, quiet, was bigger than any donation check. They cleared the building. Bomb techs found the setup a crude but deadly plan tied to the utility line designed to ignite when the side door opened. Another accident, another headline, another erased witness. But it didn't happen because a 9-year-old recognized 3 words that didn't belong in any hallway, because a grandmother refused to be polite, because a man who'd spent his life believing control was everything finally let someone else lead. In the aftermath, there were arrests that climbed higher than Roman wanted to believe. A partner flipped. A councilman resigned. Gideon Markov tried to bargain names for time threats for mercy. And at sentencing, the judge asked if anyone wished to speak. Ruth stood. Not Roman, not the prosecutors. Ruth. She faced Gideon and didn't raise her voice. "You thought a child wouldn't matter," Ruth said. "You thought she'd be invisible." Ruth's hands didn't shake. "My granddaughter is not invisible. She's not a tool. She's not a loose end." Ruth turned her head slightly, looking at Roman Vale just long enough for him to feel it. "And neither is your conscience." Roman swallowed hard. That was the verdict. Not just for Gideon, for Roman. 6 months later, the streetcar barn looked different. Not a gala, not a vanity project. A community space, busy, loud, real. Kids poured in after school for tutoring meals, language classes, music lessons. A sign near the entrance read, "The Compass House." Underneath smaller letters, "A place to find your way." Lila stood at the front desk with a volunteer badge, cheeks flushed with pride. Ruth hovered nearby, pretending she wasn't crying. Roman Vale walked in quietly, no cameras, no entourage. He looked less like a king now, more like a man trying. He stopped near the wall where a framed photo hung Lila holding roses outside the LaRue Grand sunlight in her hair, eyes serious like she already knew too much. Roman's voice was low. "You okay?" Lila shrugged. "Yeah, I'm different now." Roman nodded. "Me too." Lila tilted her head. "Grandma says you can't buy being good." Roman's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "Your grandma is right." Lila pulled her compass from her pocket and flipped it open. Roman glanced at the engraving. "What does it say again?" Lila read it softly. "Don't be afraid." Roman stared at the words like they were new every time. "I was afraid," Roman admitted. "I just covered it with money." Lila's voice stayed gentle. And now Roman exhaled. "Now I show up, even when it costs me." A teacher approached one of Lila's tutors holding a folder. "Mr. Vale," she said, "we're scheduling Lila's advanced placement evaluation." Roman nodded immediately. "I'll be there." The teacher blinked. "You don't have to attend, I want to," Roman said, and he meant it. Lila watched him like she was still figuring out what kind of grown-up he was becoming. "You know," she said quietly, "you changed your own life." Roman looked down at her, throat tight. "Maybe," he said, "but you gave me a reason to." Lila stepped closer and hugged him, quick, simple, like she wasn't asking permission for affection anymore. Roman froze for a second like he always did. Then he hugged her back, careful, honest. No speeches, no grand gestures. Just a man learning how to be human, because he finally listened to the smallest voice in the room. 1 year after the day on Canal Street, Lila didn't sell roses anymore. She still kept one pressed flower in her desk drawer, though, just to remember where she started. Roman kept something too. Not a contract, not a gun, not a trophy. A brass compass sitting beside his reports like a reminder that direction mattered more than dominance. Gideon Markov was in prison. The network was broken. Roman's empire was smaller, cleaner, built with fewer shadows. And somewhere in New Orleans, a 9-year-old who used to be invisible walked into rooms like she belonged there. Because she did. Because she'd been brave when nobody listened. Because she proved the smallest voice could stop the biggest disaster. And because this time people looked. If you felt that final turn, drop a heart.